Hi, Christina.
Hey, Dean, how's it going?
It is a beautiful day here. Christina, so tell folks a little bit about you, and then I have a hypothetical situation I want you to explore with me.
Sounds good. My name is Christina Del Villar, and I have been working in startups, especially B2B technology, for the past 35 years.
Mhm.
And my focus really is more on the strategic component of the company and how to build revenue from that. I really like to get to predictable revenue. So I like to take a look at what the strategy is, what the goals are. It doesn't really matter the size of the company. But I feel like that's one area that companies kind of fail at is they kind of build and they grow and they do things, but they kind of forget what their ultimate strategy was, and therefore they don't have alignment in the company. And so those are some of the areas that I really like to focus on when I work with companies.
Well, in that case, this hypothetical show work out very nicely. So here's the scenario. Okay.
Okay.
Well, the selling process is over. You sign the
Uh,
contracts. It's going to be a 1 year engagement as a
yeah.
fractional CMO. Today is day one.
Day one. Yeah.
What are the first, briefly as a summary? What do the first 3 months look like?
Yeah, the first 3 months are, it's interesting because depending on the size of the company and where they are in their life cycle,
Mhm.
they might be up and running. They might have had a CMO before. They might have a marketing department. They might know nothing about marketing, and this is the first sort of marketing role that they've had. So I always want to understand sort of what the process has been to get to where we are today. Then what I do is I sit down with the executive team and again, kind of going back to what I just said, really focus in on what the ultimate goals of the company are and what that strategy needs to be if there isn't one in place. Most companies don't have a strategy to get to their ultimate goals. And again, that can be a short term, 1 year, 5 year, 10 year,
Right.
longer term goal. But again, if you don't know what that actually is, and I do this all the time, I'll talk to the CFO. He or she thinks it's something different than the CEO and the people who are working in the minds down below have no idea what the ultimate goal and strategy is. And so the second piece is really making sure that that strategy makes sense, it's doable, putting a plan in place to then get to that, putting a strategy in place to get to that ultimate goal, and then getting that alignment. So those are kind of the main areas. But the other thing that's really critical that I like to focus on is the customer.
Right.
I think a lot of people don't really understand who their target audience is. I'll ask a question like, who do you think your ideal customer is? And they'll tell me who their current customer is. And I'm like, is that your ideal customer? And they're like, but that's our customer. And I'm like, but is that your ideal customer? So we have these conversations. But again, at the same time, you still need to be running the company. So it's like, what do they say, building the plane while you're flying it. So you still have to take that into consideration. And because marketing is so misunderstood, you have to have some quick hits. And so I do like to try to figure out as quickly as I can within a month what those quick hits are going to be. So that's kind of the process that I go through. And those first 90 days really sort of incorporates understanding the business, building that strategy, hoping to get to alignment. And again, really focusing on what the customer, who that customer is, and then intertwining that with what that strategy is and going from there.
All right. Shannon, hello.
Hi.
So, Shannon, tell folks a little bit about you, and then I want to tackle the same hypothetical, but in a slightly different way.
Okay. My name is Shannon Clement, and I'm from Engagement Marketing. I lead marketing and communications for tech companies who have products and services used both on Earth and in space. I'm proud to say that I'm hitting the 10-year mark in January, running my fractional business as a marketing lead for hire. And this was before the term fractional CMO was popular. So I've been doing it for a while. I work with clients in US, Europe, Canada, and I live in Ottawa, the capital of Canada.
Okay, so before we go any further, I once entertained a potential job offer to live in Ottawa,
Oh,
and my wife's from Florida. I'm Canadian, but and American, and my wife's American. Sometimes my kids will ask her, like, "Does it bother you? You're only one thing," right? Because they both have two passports. And my wife looks it up and sees that on average, 2 or 3 days a year, Ottawa is colder than Mars, and it is the coldest national capital of any country, including Russia. So stay warm up there, because winters are. I mean, I explained to my wife, yeah, but you can sometimes you can skate to work. She says that is not a plus.
but luckily with global warming, it's
Yeah,
getting a lot warmer.
Fair enough. Uh,
And
uh,
the ice isn't even freezing anymore, so we're like, "What's going on?" It's maybe one day it'll be like Florida, who knows?
yeah, who knows? If Ottawa becomes like Florida, God knows what Florida will
I
be
know
like.
what's gonna happen.
Um,
Anyway.
okay, so same hypothetical, except this time, same 1 year engagement. Today's day one. You actually show up. So unusually, not in space, but somewhere on Earth, you show up at a client site, and you're talking to your marketing team, like your marketing team, and they want to know. So, like, what can we expect in the first couple of months of you working with us? You're the first CMO of any kind. We've had some, supervisors or managers in marketing. We've never had anyone at a leadership level. So, what are the first 90 days going to look like for us?
Okay, so it's a little like I work with both tech on Earth and in space. So the space stuff is a little bit different. So I'll start with that because maybe it's a little more interesting. The audience is B2B, and the goal is not always to get directly to sell directly to another
Mm-hmm.
company. It could be that they need funding for a project. They have to work with another company to get that funding from the government. So strategic partnerships are huge, and also working collaboratively with other companies. So partnership marketing is big. So that's how I'll preface this. But working as a fractional CMO is essentially like, as you know, it's a part-time marketing leader working with the leadership team to achieve business objectives. So um, I work with the CEO. He or she usually hires me when they've identified that they need to achieve more aggressive growth targets. So maybe they've gone through a round of funding or they're looking to launch a new product in the market, but they need someone to level up that marketing department or build a marketing department from scratch and lead that team. But they can't afford a full-time a full-time CEO. So that's where the fractional piece comes in. Now, working over the last 10 years in the industry, I've seen like a huge transformation in how I work with companies because 10 years ago, it was, we had the same kind of framework. I would start working with a business in the first 30 days. I would get to know the staff. I would work with the CEO and the senior management team to really listen, which was key, observe, and then analyze. So that's always been the same. But as I've done this, working with multiple CEOs, I've I've found out that a lot of times sometimes they have a, not an ulterior motive, but they have something in their mind that they want to achieve, and they don't always communicate that.
Right.
So I start off with a survey, and it's a long document that the CEO needs to, fill out before I even start that 30-day engagement, and answering those questions, I know that they're committed. I know that they have maybe like more of a trust factor going into this, working with me, and I can get started right away, understanding kind of the lay of the land, the dynamics of the team, and I can start getting results quicker. So in the first 30 days, I work with that team. Um, I understand them a little bit better than I would if I didn't have that document. And I start looking at what the quick wins will be, and then also who their partners are, if they have outside partners that I can work with. But after that 30 days, once I've done a lot of listening and really understand the business better, that's when I start looking at the quarterly plans, the yearly plans, and I take an agile approach. So I do sprints, and I'll do a sprint every 2 weeks working with the team. And with those sprints, we have KPIs that we're looking to hit. We have revenue goals that I've already gathered from when I first started working with the CEO, and then we're off to the races.
All right. I want to talk about the CEO in a second. Actually, let's talk about the CEO now. So let's stay inside our little hypothetical. Shannon and I am the CEO at the client company. Okay. And we're having our little sit down on your day one in the employee break room or whatever. And I say, Shannon, so you've worked with way more CEOs than I've worked with CMOs. So tell me something that CEOs do that they should stop doing so that a fractional CMO is, can do everything they need to do.
I work with a lot of startups, and those CEOs a lot of time have been working on the marketing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel this personal connection to the marketing. And some of them, not all of them, feel like they can do it well. And they're only giving this up because they really just don't have any more time to dedicate to it. So I would say, let it go. Just, like the movie, let it go. And trust that CMO is going to understand how you do things. They might have a different way of doing things, but you're all working towards the same objective. So just trust them, let go of that marketing piece, and let them do their job.
All right, then, Christina, the
Yeah.
opposite question, I guess. What should a CEO start doing so that the company gets maximum benefit out of that 1 year of a fractional CMO's time?
So I think that the CEOs and founders have been so focused on building their company, and oftentimes they're focused more on the product side. Again, they might dabble in marketing or think they know marketing and need to kind of give that up. And I think what they need to do is let marketing basically get out of marketing's way, which is hard. You need to build that trust with them. You
Mm-hmm.
need to help them understand that you are trying to help them build predictable revenue. Like revenue is key, right? Revenue is king. Revenue. It's all about revenue. And if you don't help them understand that that is marketing's job and that they have their own job, they should be going getting more funding and hiring the right people and whatever else they need to do. But they really need to allow the marketing organization, to build that revenue and understand and give them the tools that they need to do that, whether that's more personnel or more budget, and really let marketing reach for and implement whatever that strategy is so that we can get to that predictable revenue. And that's what they're looking for. They want
Yeah.
predictable revenue. I think it's really hard for marketers to say, I own revenue, but that's what we do. We own revenue. We own all the revenue of the company, right? And so the sooner marketers can say we own revenue, and the sooner you can show the CEO that if they were to let us do our job properly, we would get that predictable revenue. So it's hard. It's not easy for anybody. It's not easy for CEOs and C-suite in general to sort of let go of that control. So building trust initially is really critical. And again, as a fractional, you have to get in there, and you don't have that much time to prove yourself and to build that trust. So you have to have a process that I work through with them, whether it's through questionnaires or just working directly with them and the team, helping them sort of level set what that strategy is. So you kind of have to build that trust. And then you can start having a lot more influence and have your team really focus on revenue growth and predictable revenue.
All right, so Christina, I have a couple fill in the blank questions now, and I
Yeah.
like these because
Oh,
it's almost no work on my part. All the heavy lifting is done by everyone else. So I'm gonna start this, and then you finish it. Okay.
okay.
Many clients just don't understand.
That they need to have a strategy in place in order for the company to be aligned and working together for whatever that ultimate goal is for the company.
All right, and then Shannon, what do you think? Many clients just don't understand what.
They just don't understand how important the story is. The story is so key to getting buy-in from your audience and having them trust you and be interested in what you do, because it's not about the thing that you sell, it's about the story behind it.
Fair enough. All right. Second of the three fill in the blank questions. Shannon, we'll start with you. A fractional CMO starting their business today is going to be surprised by what?
How many other fractional CMOs are out there? There's so many of us now. No, all joking aside, I think they really, for me, when I first started, I didn't realize how important the pipeline was. So that you, as a marketer, because you're not working full time somewhere, you are having to market yourself a lot more than you would if you had a job. So I think just being consistent with your own marketing and having that pipeline that you're always working on is one of the biggest things.
And Christina, what do you think? A fractional CMO starting today is going to be surprised by what?
I think they're going to be surprised, and I'm always surprised that I'm surprised when you go into a company and as a CMO who's supposed to be focused sort of more on higher level strategy, one of the first things they ask is, should we update our website? And it's just one of those things where they're sort of focused on the tactical components of marketing instead of the strategic. And even though the conversations you've had, and even though you've signed, this year-long contract with them, and even though you thought this is exactly, what they need and what I need, they do tend to focus initially on again some of the more tactical components of marketing.
All right.
How to use AI.
There you go. Yeah.
How do I use that thing?
Just as an aside to anyone who's a potential client, if you strategic versus tactical aside, if you think your website needs to be updated, it probably does, but it's not necessarily the first thing you want to do.
Well, it's not necessarily the first thing you want to do, update your website,
No.
because you don't necessarily know what your strategy is or who those customers are
Or your
yet.
story.
So, or what your story is. So maybe, and even if so, then let's take some time to figure out what that should be, so you don't have to update it again in 12 months.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Last of the fill in the blank questions. Christina, here's clients love this, but I think it's overrated.
Websites. No, I think that, again, a lot of times people hear things like, oh, my SEO isn't working, or should I have TikTok, or should I look at my website, right? And so again, I would say focusing on the tactical components of marketing is really overrated, right? Like even AI, should I have AI? Well, what does that mean? Like, should you have an AI strategy? Maybe. And so sort of some of the terminology that marketing uses, they kind of throw back at us, and they don't understand it. And so I think we need to sort of help them with nomenclature and then set some expectations on what that looks like, because otherwise you can kind of get stuck in a hole, like trying to fix your SEO and website again when you don't even know what your strategy or who your customers are.
And Shannon, a slightly different version of the question, something that my clients don't think about, but I think is underrated, is what?
How important the right metrics are for your business, because I've worked with a lot of clients who get very stuck on like very specific metrics that they're trying to understand from their Google Analytics. and it really means nothing to their business. It's just like, I just don't understand why the page views went up by this amount, and I need to really understand that because it's driving me crazy. And so there are these metrics that clients focus on, and then they feel like, oh, well, the business isn't doing as well because this metric is off and it should be higher. Maybe something else should be lower. But if you have a plan in place that is like you have an analytics plan that follows your business goals, like you're focusing on your business goals rather than like smaller little metrics on Google Analytics, it's going to get you way further ahead.
Okay, so this is the last question before we wind down. It's added new for this season, and it comes from the fact that everybody who appears on the podcast picked their own time slot, which is to say everyone ends up with a co-guest that was completely random. So you end up in this, conversation with another fractional CMO who you've never met in almost every case, and it's suddenly like thrust together. And so you guys can ask each other a question. It can be any question you want. Obviously, it doesn't have to be the same question, but we'll start with Christina. Like, Christina, what would you ask Shannon?
So Shannon, I love what you are focused on and your focus again on space. And I always say like I build a rocket ship, right? So when you talk to clients, how are you helping them understand sort of the breadth and depth of what you can offer them and where they'll end up?
Yeah, it's a really interesting industry. And now it's not only an industry, it's an economy. So they call it the space economy. Um, and when I work with new clients, one of the real value adds that I bring to the table is my industry experience. So working in tech was a great foundation, but then now working only for a few years now in space, I've gotten to understand how key industry, academia, government, and business all work together. It's very different from like just a plain software, not a plain software, but a software company. From a software company that is selling direct to consumer or B2B, because there are all these other players that you're trying to get funding a lot of the time from a government grant, and you need to attract other partners that are going to be interested in working with you. So it's not just attracting your the person who is going to buy your product. It is also attracting all of these other players to get them interested in what you do. So that's when I say the story is so important, even more so in space. The story is so important.
And Shannon, what's your question for Christina?
Christina, I want to know a little bit more about who you serve and the types of clients that you've worked with.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. So I have worked with different size startups, but they're usually early to mid-size. So, 50 million and below. And oftentimes I am the first sort of marketing executive that comes in. But again, I feel like I'm more than just the marketing executive because I'm really helping lead the rest of the C-suite and the executive team to, again, whatever that next step is. Maybe it's more funding, maybe ultimately they want to sell, or maybe they're acquiring companies, or they want to IPO. And to me, it's really where they're trying to get more investment, to be able to show growth and be able to show predictable revenue growth is really critical for them, whichever of those they're trying to do, or if they're trying to exit or whatever. And so I come in and help them get to a point where they can, again, show what that predictable revenue growth is for like whatever their next step is on that ladder. So
Very cool.
yeah,
Do you ever feel like you're a bit of a therapist?
Yes, there's no question. I do therapy. I should have had a degree in psychology or psychiatry or something. It's definitely a therapy. And I think, again, when we talk about some of those executives, the founders, the CEO, because again, I do work with those early stage companies, this is their baby, right? And it's like, okay, I'm going to take your baby and I'm going to turn the baby into an adult. And you don't get to say, you don't have a lot of say in that, because I need, like, I know what I'm doing, right? Like you can say, I want more arms or whatever, but it's really hard for them to give up control and to build that trust. And I feel like anytime there's a setback, it's like exponentially setback. And that's not necessarily true, but that's just in their mind. And so you really do have to be very clear about the expectations are, the objectives, and again, sort of build that trust and influence with them and the rest of the suite. So it is difficult.
All right. So Christina,
Yeah.
by the way, thank both of you for being here. This has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Christina, who should contact you these days, and how should they get to you?
I would say companies that are around 50 to 100 million and need to expand on their marketing. They probably don't have a CMO in place right now. They might have a director of marketing. And again, they have something specific in mind with their strategy that they need to accomplish. Again, it could be that they're looking for more investment. It could be that they're really just trying to grow and scale now. Maybe they've been in stealth mode for a little while, and or they might just need more investment. And they can give me a call. They can reach out to me at cdv@christinawr.com or go to my website. And I'd be happy to talk to them about what the next steps might be to build that strategy and get to that predictable revenue.
And Shannon, how about you? Who should contact you these days, and how?
CEOs or anyone on the leadership team who has identified marketing, that they need marketing leadership. Maybe they have some consultants that they're working with, or they have some junior staff internally, but now they need to grow and they need that strategic person who can come in and start creating a plan for them to reach their targets. Maybe they have a target for a year, 5 years, whatever. They're trying to appease investors. They're looking to create standard operating procedures to get to that next level, and that's when they typically bring me in.
All right. Thank you both for being here today. This has been fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks for
having us.
episode 135, I think this was. So it's been
Woo!
fantastic.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All done. Okay, so my editor insists that I look stupidly at the camera without saying anything for a couple seconds. So that's how this is gonna end, and then I hope it gets trimmed later. And for everyone else, I'll see you in the next episode, or more likely the next clip. There are loads of them. Take a look.